Hey everyone, Skull902 here. It's come to my attention over the last little while on Twitter that the villain of all content creators, YouTube's algorithm, is starting to really go full swing on Sonic parody channels by marking their videos as made for kids. Now, as far as I'm aware, I myself didn't have any videos falsely given this status by YouTube, and I am kind of putting myself at risk by even making this video. But as someone who has done, is doing, and plans to do more skits of this kind, it's certainly an issue that can affect me and, if something doesn't change, it could very well spread to animation on YouTube as a whole. I have some thoughts and opinions as well as suggestions to cover, so let's jump right in. The beginning of this recent wave I saw was a tweet from Steve of Bellina Productions, explaining that a video of his that got hit was going to be permanently marked as made for kids by YouTube, despite a disclaimer at the beginning and subject matter in the work itself. What he showed was that this decision was made on appeal, supposedly after a human review. And I say supposedly because when it comes to YouTube, based on every time I've heard about making these kinds of appeals, if somebody appeals something like this or some other kind of violation, they'll just automate any judgments on the appeal. Case in point, Mark Darklighter chimed in that their appeal was rejected pretty much instantaneously. There is no way somebody actually watched the video in question, and this is a big problem. Not only does it tell the website's machine learning system that it made the right choice when it clearly didn't, but is a pretty damning show of a lack of responsibility on the part of YouTube's appeal department for not doing the one literal job they were given. That being said, after I originally wrote this video, it looks like Steve got some of his videos back to where they should be after an actual human looked at it, so I guess you just gotta bother them enough. Which even then, only big creators such as him have the fanbase to make enough noise for that to happen, so it's still very much a problem. Oh wait, lol, he got hit again since I wrote that part. Sure enough, more complaints came in about these false flags from creators like KN of Sonic Song 182, Pixel Rush, The Wax/Sonic Paradox, Bulma Bunny, and even non-skit makers such as Charka-X and Blue Vivacity. But for comparison's sake, I haven't heard a peep about the same thing being done to, say, parodies of kid-oriented or general audience franchises from mainstream shows like South Park, The Simpsons, Family Guy, or especially Robot Chicken since the official Adult Swim channel uploads those ones. Not a single for kids label in sight on those videos. Not surprising since that kind of favoritism isn't anything new to YouTube, which seems a little backwards, doesn't it? YouTube catering to the mainstream folks as if they weren't the ones trying to kill the website back a few years ago? Here's another thing that really gets me about that. Back when the Adpocalypse controversy was going down, YouTube introduced a bunch of new restrictive policies on the website. One of them was that you can't monetize family-friendly characters doing family-unfriendly things over fear of that content being considered misleading. Ooh. This was in response to the Elsagate shock videos that were out there. So they set a standard back then. Don't be too mature with your parody content. And thus far, the rule's been fairly inconsistently enforced, but that's what they were going with. Then the changes brought on by the COPPA settlement happened. Now, the FTC has since said that YouTube's policy changes in regards to that were completely on the website. The only thing the government had to do with that was that targeted ads weren't being displayed on children's content anymore. But YouTube did its thing anyway and relied on an AI to try and fix the mess. So you couldn't do adult-themed parodies anymore, that was off the table. But now if you're too family-friendly, you're also fucked because your targeted ads are gone, and more importantly, so is your engagement. It's hypocritical in my opinion. There is no longer any consistency to the rule enforcement on this kind of thing. At first you were making people tone things down, but now we've got to try to tone it back up so as to not set off the made for kids flag? There's no defined middle ground. And because of that, as well as YouTube's desperation to keep the main website and its kids app connected for some reason, despite the fact that it's against the site's terms of service to even have an account if you're under 13 years old, we've got videos featuring sexual references or violence alongside stuff like Sesame Street and Paw Patrol. They created the very problem they said they were trying to prevent. So, what to do about the situation? Well, I don't claim to be the smartest man in the world, far from it, but from what I'm seeing, these are the options that I think might resolve the problem. For creators, trying to start a whole new website and using YouTube as a backup. For what I hope are very obvious reasons, this is by far the least likely thing that could be done. Running a video website is unbelievably expensive and takes a lot of resources to do. So again, extremely unlikely, but technically it could be done by someone with enough of the tools at their disposal. Filing a class action lawsuit for loss of profits or unfair business practices. Again, extremely unlikely. Just a little less so than the whole website thing. I can't imagine it'd be easy to take on Google's lawyers, especially if it were a bunch of lawsuits from individual creators instead of class action. unionizing. Now, I'm sure the bigger channels of the bunch might have an MCN or a creator manager to try and help advocate for them, but that kind of luxury is available only to the biggest of the big, and results are often mixed. However, I think being under one big collective for negotiations on issues important to creators might result in positives. Think about how the big four sports leagues have players' unions. The YouTube Creators Association, shit, I'd join. In my opinion, something like this would seriously help with issues like these for individuals and creators as a whole. For YouTube, revamping the YouTube Kids app and separating it entirely from the main website. This, I think, would be the solve for the problem. If YouTube itself was strictly for ages 13 and up, while the Kids app was more controlled with exclusive creators making content for it, in addition to allowing major studios to transfer their videos there, that would be a win-win. No more worrying about COPPA's effect on the main site, which would render the restrictions put in place because of it moot. Take a feature from Newgrounds. When you upload an animation there, they give you a list of items to describe what's in the content so that a rating can be assigned to your video. YouTube already kinda does this, but in a very simplified way, and only for monetized content, and it doesn't rate the video either, just saying whether it'll be fully monetized, run with limited ads, or no ads. The algorithm would presumably have to be changed to respond to these ratings, and the site would have to rely on users to report videos that were inappropriately rated, but that's a lot better than letting the bot do everything in my personal opinion. Standing up for itself to the advertisers would be nice, but it's likely never going to happen. At the very least, the site should give advertisers tools to choose which channels they want to run their ads on, with options for demographics or the type of content where they want their ads displayed. That way, the rules restricting mature content can also be relaxed. For others, if YouTube doesn't do anything, I think there are a couple websites that could try and swoop in. Twitch, even with its odd rules and even worse enforcement of them, could try to expand to hosting pre-made videos. It's not like Amazon doesn't have the money to ramp up the competition with YouTube. By the same token, Pornhub, you're loaded, you could totally make a safe for work video sharing website. Plus, the people who run you are total bros, so it'd probably be really friendly to creators. If anything, the tweets would be glorious. Another extremely unlikely thing, but it'd be cool. This whole video was inspired by what's been happening to Sonic creators, but the problem more than likely isn't limited to them. If the people behind these IPs were to scour through these parodies and other fan works in an attempt to find people to work with on official projects, that would also be really helpful. So that's my take. It really is unfortunate to see this going down in the community. From personal experience, I know it takes a long-ass time to make these kinds of videos. As for me and my channel, like I've said, I've got plans to do more skits in the future, and although that kind of content is easily the most popular on my channel, if I absolutely have to stop, there are other types of videos I've been doing and can still do. But I'm more an exception to the rule on that front. For most of the people affected, that's all they've got, and it has to be a big blow for this kind of thing to happen. It affects not just the revenue for these legal parodies, but it also takes the community away when the content can't be easily searched for, you can't add it to a playlist, and you can't leave any feedback on it either. That sucks, and it's time for a change to be made. From what I'm aware, this also had a big effect on toy review channels for adult collectors when COPPA restrictions went in place, and it took a while, but the situation was at some point cleared up. Hopefully the same can happen in this instance, but I have my doubts. The vast majority of these videos are animations, and that's what I think will be hit the most if the situation only gets worse. It could very well be spread from these parody works to storytime channels like The Odd Ones Out or Let Me Explain Studios. I know that they've mentioned games like Pokemon in their videos, so imagine if even just a brief mention of a general audience IP got a video labeled Made for Kids regardless of what was actually in it, or if it became the fate of all animated videos, original or otherwise. Think about this, YouTube. Would you really want Cyanide and Happiness on the Kids app? I didn't think so. If I said any more, I think I'd be repeating myself, but that's what I think of the whole situation. There's been a couple articles written on it that I'll link in the description if you want a little more professional explanation of what's been going on. Hopefully it gets better, but YouTube's track record on that is pretty piss poor. So whether it be me for some godforsaken reason, anyone else I've mentioned here, or some other fan creator, I implore you to go check out some fan works of your favorite franchises if that's your thing, and if you like what you see, do what you can to give them support because it means a lot. With that said, I have been Skull902. Thank you for watching and have yourselves a wonderful day. Also, if YouTube marks this video as made for kids just because it mentions Sonic or any other family-friendly IP, it's an admission that they can't take criticism and have small penises.